My name is Adeline Pyatt, and this is my presentation about gender issues in China versus gender issues in Japan. Gender equality is defined as a state in which access to rights or opportunities is unaffected by gender. The term gender issue refers to any issue or concern determined gender-based and/or sex-based differences between women and men. I will begin by starting off with gender inequality in China. Since the beginning of Chinese society, men have been viewed as the central powers and women viewed as weak and valued. The tradition of foot binding, dating back to the 12th century, shows the kind of hardships Chinese women had to endure just to achieve beauty in their culture. It was not even banned until the early 20th century, thanks to anti-foot binding protests from the Chinese social reformers. The Mao era is the first time in Chinese history that women start to see some gender equality. Women were desexualized and portrayed in a more masculine light, encouraging women to go for more male-dominated jobs. China's one-child policy was introduced in 1979 after the baby boom of the 50s and 60s resulted in a population increase. The policy only recently ended in 2015. It violated women's reproductive rights and also forced many women to have selective abortions. Many couples favor male children, making women unequal before they are even born. Although the one-child policy had many negative effects, it empowered women to spend more time on their careers and less time in the home doing domestic work. The two-child policy was introduced in 2015 as a replacement for the one-child policy. Parents are now allowed to have 2 children. It improves family life in China, however, it encourages women to stay at home with the children rather than moving up in the workplace. The term leftover women refers to a woman who remains unmarried in their late 20s and beyond. Typically, these women are successful and career-driven. The term was made globally recognized after an interview with Lita Hong Fisher. More than 90% of Chinese women marry before the age 30. For the majority of the country, women in rural areas tend to be less educated because of outdated traditional values. In 2010, for example, in the center and west of the country, rural women had only attended school for an average about 7 years, about 2 years less than those living in the rural zones of the municipalities of Beijing and Tianjin. China has become one of the few countries in the world in which the mortality rate of girls before their first birthday is higher than that of boys. If a son is ill, parents generally react faster and get him the treatment he needs. In 2016, about 63% of women were in the labor force compared to about 80% of men. Women were also just 17% of all legislators, senior officials, and managers in China. Although compared to other countries, 51% of women in China are in senior management positions. According to Catalyst.org, a 2017 study revealed that 40% of working women in China were hesitant to have children. Over half of women worried that having children significantly impact their career development. Maternity leave in China is at least 98 days, and 100% of wages for maternity leave are paid for. Employers use this to their advantage by denying women employment because of the long maternity leave. In 2010 survey, more than 72% of women stated they were not hired or promoted due to gender discrimination. Now we will look into the gender issues of China's neighboring country, Japan. Similarly to China, Japan values traditional Confucianism ideals. One ideal that Japanese society stresses that women should learn is the ideal of Ryusei Kenbo, meaning good wife, wise mother. The phrase became popular in the late 19th century as a way for the government to repress the growing popularity of the working girl movement. While Chinese parents tend to favor having a son, Japanese parents tend to favor daughters. Women control the household budget, and household decisions, allowing men to devote themselves to their work. Full-time housewives are valuable because of their family-raising role. The passage of the 1997 EEOL and international legal pressure resulting from Japan's ratification of the CEDAW paved the way for progressive legal changes. The fact that 40% of women composed the Japanese workforce in 2002 is somewhat misleading, since the jobs they occupied were not equivalent to those occupied by men. Even after the passage of the 1997 EEOL, as of 2002, 70% of women continue to experience sexual harassment or discrimination in the workplace. Women's maternity leave in Japan is from 6 weeks before childbirth to up to 8 weeks after childbirth. The mother only receives 2/3 of her last salary. After childbirth, both parents are eligible to take 12 months parental leave, with each receiving 50% of their last earnings. However, a survey found that only about 1.5% of male employees take parental leave, compared to about 90% of mothers. Historically, Japanese girls were disadvantaged when it came to getting a good education. Today, there is practically no gender gap in the opportunity for education in Japan. Even in the upper secondary education higher levels, difference of enrollment ratios between male and female students is scarcely present. Now we will compare the two countries. In China, most parents prefer to have sons. 100% of maternity leave is paid for, and not all women are equally as educated, especially those living in rural areas. In Japan, most parents prefer to have daughters. The expecting mother only receives 2/3 of her last salary during maternity leave. Both genders are very well educated and have equal resources. However, both countries are similar in the ways that they both have traditional Confucianism values. Both countries have a maternity leave for around 90 days. In both countries, there are equal opportunities for women in the workplace. Housewives and stay-at-home mothers are important gender roles. Thank you for watching my presentation.